throwing back a couple different ideas for topics today. And I think one topic that just kind of is hitting me, I don't know, is just like the current climate of the market. I think that for me at least, I put 5 listings on the market Thursday evening. As some of you guys might know, Thursday is my day. That's like my listing day. When I was a kid, I used to have ice cream day when I was a kid.
It's funny. I was talking to
Now I
someone
have
about
listing
this.
day.
Yeah, but so why did you choose Thursdays?
I chose Thursday because.
And why do you think it's more effective to have a set day?
Okay, so I chose Thursday because I'm trying to maintain control over all of my listings. If I put, I'm doing it for a multitude of reasons, but I think the top 2 reasons that I do Thursday is to maintain control for my client first and foremost, because if my client's not having a controlled sort of environment, who else is going to be uncontrolled? Me, because they're going to be calling me every 10 minutes. And we all know that if you put a house on the market and it explodes with showings, then your client is going to be, they're going to be like accommodating a showing for 5 o'clock. They're going to sit back down to have that family dinner, and they're going to, boom, get a phone call for another showing.
So you'd rather pack them in through the weekend?
So I pack them in through the weekend through back-to-back open houses. Saturday open house 12 to 3, Sunday open house 12 to 3.
Do you allow showings on Thursday, the day
I
that
do not.
What about Friday?
No.
Neither day?
Neither day.
Interesting.
So some realtors hate me.
You think that builds up, a demand? That's why you're doing it?
Well, it builds up a demand, but it also, again, I'm trying to maintain control. Or manageability, I should say, not control. I guess both.
So like when your sellers ask you this question on a listing appointment, is that what you tell them?
I tell my sellers, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to make your life a whole lot easier. We're going to list the house Thursday, no later than like afternoon. This past Thursday, they went really late because MLS was down or something like that. I don't know. So I was actually in the office till like 12:30 at night, like 12:30 a.m., putting these listings in the system with the help of Joanne. Actually, she was helping me out. I put the house on the market Thursday, no showings Thursday or Friday. That way I'm compliant with MLS rules.
Right.
Because if you have a house that can't be shown for more than 48 hours, you're supposed to be taking it off the market.
Right.
All right, so, and we all know realtors, if they can't get in a house and it's been more than 48 hours, they're going to complain.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't show it Thursday. I don't show it Friday. First showing Saturday at noon. I do an open house from 12 to 3. And then the same thing Sunday. I do an open house 12 to 3. And then typically I'm calling for highest and best offer either by 6 p.m.
in this
Monday
market,
or right. I mean, prior to this market, I did not take this approach.
Got it.
Right. So then I'm doing highest and best by Monday, 6 p.m. or I'm doing highest and best by Tuesday. So like today at noon, I called highest and best for 2 out of those 5 houses. The other 1 out of the 5, I took an offer over the weekend. And then the other 2, I also have offers coming in. We'll probably do a highest and best by tonight, maybe tomorrow. And it seems to be working really well, And a couple things that it does do is it does build up demand. So if you're working primarily for a seller, and you're trying to do a really good job for them, when people come to see the house Saturday at noon, they're typically seeing a line of people out the front door, down the driveway, down to the neighbor's house. So again, you set up that sense of urgency.
Right.
It's the FOMO, right? The fear of missing out, and people start to go berserko. But I will say, in my opening sort of statement and segue into this, the current climate of the market.
Right.
I have to tell you, this weekend there were no lines.
Right.
I showed up. Well, I didn't show up. I did 1 of the 5 houses.
Yeah.
I had other colleagues of mine doing the other 4 houses. And I can tell you that the response was very similar on all 5. There were no lines out the front door.
Yep.
I'd say Saturday's open houses averaged maybe 10 to 15 people. Sunday.
Which is good.
Which is very good. But it's more normal.
Right.
That's almost what we were seeing pre-pandemic.
Right.
And I know I can speak for many of you guys where my clients are calling me. Now they have 2 offers. Some of them have 3 to 5% over list price. One of them is just at list price, one of the homes. And one of them got like 25% over list price. But the majority of them, 3 to 5% over list price, and my sellers are calling me like, what's going on?
I know.
Why am
It's
I
crazy,
only
right?
getting 3 to 5% over?
Right.
I thought I'd have more offers at this point. What's the problem?
Yep.
Like test 1, 2, is this thing on?
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, yo, you got over full price.
Right.
And this list price is 20% higher than where it would have been
Right.
pre-COVID.
It's crazy. I'm dealing with the same thing.
What I'm trying to get at is that I had a feeling this was going to happen, where the sellers are going to become so fixated on getting 10, 20% over list price. The first indication and the first news reports that start coming out where they say the market's softening, buyers are going to feed off of that, and now the buyers are going to want to offer 10% below list price. And then there's the realtor in the middle, us.
Yep.
And we're like, hey, guys, over here, this is reality.
Right.
Like, you're going to have to pay more. You're going to have to come
There's
down.
probably going to be a period where there's like this stalemate of sellers that are being
100%.
stubborn, buyers that are being stubborn, and things might get real difficult for a little bit of time.
And you know what happens during a stalemate? Prices come down, because we talk about this all the time. I'm big on this. People buy and sell during life-changing events. Well, guess what? A lot of those life-changing events, they don't wait for a market.
Right.
You find out you're having a baby, you got to move, yada, 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 whatever. You know, that's science, man. You can't, you know, there's nothing you can do to like avoid that. So people need to buy, people need to sell. People pass away, people lose jobs, get divorced.
Are you guys seeing a change at all in the market climate? Like, are you seeing things soften up, slow down a touch? I think I am, a touch. You know, there's still very low inventory, very high demand, and, you know, the market's still crazy. But I think we're starting to see things softening up a touch. I think buyers are kind of throwing in the towel and just kind of saying,
No doubt.
I can't deal with it anymore.
You have to take into consideration all of the different components that make up a market, right? So obviously there was we're talking about a product and a marketplace. So there's supply and demand. And demand obviously drives price. So the market, the way that we've been seeing it as a result of pandemic, there was very little supply. There was a tremendous amount of demand. But look at things now. People are returning to Manhattan.
Yep.
People are saying, okay, things are opened again. You know, maybe the world's not going to end. I'm going back to live in a city or whatever urban area they were living in. They're going to go back to those densely populated areas. The real estate prices in the city, I know, have definitely rebounded quite a bit.
Yep.
I have quite a few friends that live in the city or lived in the city, and you know, I'm hearing a lot of this kind of stuff. And it's the time of year as well, so I think you have a lot of the behaviors of the buyers. You know, the response. I mean, how long can you look for a house and get outbid?
Right, and that's
against
exactly.
14 other offers before you say, like, all right, screw this, I'm done. I'm not participating in this anymore. This is insanity.
Yep.
And then you just say, like, I'm done. I'm going to stop. I'm just going to enjoy the summer. So the time of year also has something to do with it. I mean,
agree,
real estate
totally.
historically is a cyclical business.
Yep.
So I always, remembering back year after year after year, come mid-June, graduation parties, 4th of July.
Yep.
That's when the market typically fizzes out and
Yep.
dies out. Most people that want to land and get acclimated for the school year, so they want to be settled in time for
Then
late
you usually
August.
see like a slight bump in September, October.
Yeah, of course.
A little, rush to get in before the end of the
I've
year.
always said that the market dies in June and it picks back up right after Labor Day.
Yep.
And then it dies again right around Thanksgiving. And
sure.
then it picks up. Spring market typically kicks off, no pun intended, right after the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. So, I mean, what are you guys seeing? Is there anything that you want to discuss? Anything that you need help with?
Nah, they don't need any help.
No?
These guys are rock stars.
What do you got, Ariel?
Thanks. No, I just want to say, Chris, I appreciate you touching on the fact that some of your sellers are disappointed that they're not getting astronomical numbers over list and a ton of offers, because I just had a seller recently that was so terribly upset with me that they only got one offer. Just a touch below list price, and they were just, I think they're just crazy people, but they really went off on me, so I started feeling bad about myself. I'm like, maybe am I doing something wrong? But I'm happy to hear that it's happening with everyone else. Or maybe not everyone, but other people are experiencing it.
Listen, it's happening with everybody, and I appreciate that. I was in a very similar situation, and I could see the writing on the wall that things are starting to cool. No, I mean, I was seeing indicators that the market was softening, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are. But, I had a very similar situation happen 2 weeks ago where I had a homeowner. He's listed for $479, okay? I would have told him $399 pre-COVID, and he got an offer for $500,000. 20% down, waiving a whole bunch of appraisal and inspection. And I said, you should definitely jump on this. He said, why would I take the first offer? I mean, this guy, he definitely knew way more than I did about real estate. That's for sure. Why should I take my first offer? I said, why wouldn't you? I said, it's $20,000 over what you're listed at. Right. This is a really good deal. And he was like, well, I'm not going to take that. I said, I think you're making a huge mistake. I was very straight up with him.
Yep,
I said, I think you're making a huge mistake. He goes, well, we'll see about that. I don't think you really know your business. I said, oh, okay, that's fine. He didn't take it. Now he's wishing he did because he's got not even any offers. He has no showings, okay, which tells me that 500 was probably a fluke. Yep. And he should have definitely taken it. And I even sent him a message because I wanted to be very clear. I sent him a text and I said, I just want to be very clear here that I am absolutely telling you to take this 500 offer. He said, yes, I hear you, but I'm not taking it. Okay, great. So, and I said, I don't want to be having this conversation in 3 months from now saying, hey, we should have taken it. So this happened once before. I remember in 2007, I feel like I remember the day it happened. I had a listing in Monmouth Beach, 4-man court. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget it because of the story that came along with the person that bought it, ultimately. But anyway, that's a story for another time. She was a convicted murderer. But anyway, that's beside the point. Well, found innocent through insanity. She's since passed away, so we could talk. My brother knows that story, I think. I feel like I remember the day that the market turned back in 2007. It was like August 2007, and the market hadn't crashed yet. The market crashed in October of 2008. That was when the whole Lehman Brothers thing happened, right. Like overnight, The Big Short.
So how did you know that the market...
Well, you just felt it, like doing the open house and nobody was showing up.
Out of nowhere.
And I listed that house for $1,125,000. And I remember having the conversation with them. They got to remember, I was in the business for 3 years at that point. And I remember having the conversation with the husband and wife, very nice people, but I said, I think the market's softening. I used that word, yep. Softening. And they were like, what? Like, they looked at me like a deer in the headlights, Like, what? And ultimately, I sold that house for $850,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So, look, I don't know if history is going to repeat itself to that extent, but, I think that as realtors, we have a certain responsibility when we're hired by homeowners. And sometimes the truth isn't pretty.
Nope.
And I think right now, are about, listing presentations and strategy with all that. But, without getting into that today, I think another thing that is, it's almost like the same mindset has to go into it where, like my big thing is being very honest with people at listing presentations, giving people the good news, the bad news, the real, the real deal. And I think right now, when you have listings, I think having that real upfront conversation about where the market is, and I mean, I've had people over the last 3 or 4 days, clients of mine, yeah, like who's that? Amanda that just said about the about not knowing if she was doing the right thing or not, because her client was like upset about only getting one offer. And I mean, I am having these conversations with my clients since Sunday's open house. Yeah, today's only Tuesday. Okay, since Sunday's open house, and they're calling me as if like I abandoned ship. They're like, "Where are you? What's going on?" Well, we feel deserted. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's been like 24 hours. Now today it's like 36 hours.
Yeah.
Like, yo, I just talked to you yesterday and told you I'm working on 3 offers.
Right.
But they want like instant gratification right now. I want 100 offers, 150,000
just put
over
it back
list.
on them. Like I had a seller recently that said the same exact thing. I got a full price offer, but it was only one offer. It was the only offer we had. And they were like, well, of course we're not going to take that. every house gets over asking price in this market. And I said, well, if that's the case, why didn't we ask another $500,000 for this? Because if every house is guaranteed to go over, why didn't we just price this way higher? And then we would. That's not how this works, you know. So you put it back on them, and they're like, well, you know what I mean, you know, too. And well, no, I don't. We already priced it higher, taking into account this market.
Yeah.
So we've already done that in the initial phase. We can't then want even more than that. We're getting a solid offer. And there's a reason why you only have one on the table after 6 or 7 showings.
Yeah.
The other people don't see the value
Right.
at that price.
Yeah.
So what makes you think someone's going to come in and then offer you even more than that? We've already done that when we priced it.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's a conversation to have too. And that's actually something that I used in a previous listing appointment. When they talked about the market and basically expecting more, I said, well, look, we can take 2 approaches. We can either price it appropriately from the start, and then there's a good chance that we will get multiple offers and go above asking price. Or we can build that into the initial price, ask higher, and then don't be shocked if we're only getting 1 or 2 and we may not have to negotiate it. But the choice is yours. But we can't do both.
You know, it's like on the way up in a market, right? Our challenge is usually appraisal, right? I mean, that's the challenge.
Yep.
And then people started getting, you know, crazy, waiving appraisals
Right.
and just taking on the responsibility of bridging that gap. Now the way down is not going to be appraisal. It's going to be your clients, the
Right.
sellers
Yep.
that are going to say, well, you know, the Smiths down the street, that house was a hunk of junk.
Right.
And that sold for $700,000.
Yep.
I want $800,000. And it's like, well, actually, that was due to timing.
Yep.
You know, and timing is everything. And that's what I try to explain to my sellers. But I will tell you guys, because I mean, look, I'm not this like expert, you know, economist or forecaster of the market. I'm just going based on experience, based on my, you know,
Sure.
history in real estate. But use this, you know, use this to your benefit, like when you're marketing. You know, one of the biggest things you could do when you're marketing yourself and your business is give a call to action. Using the fact that we're at this pivotal point in the market where we think that we're like rounding the corner of the peak, use that to create urgency for people to contact you. You know, something that I used to subscribe to, I still do, I think. I haven't used it in a while, but is the Altos report. The Altos
We talked
report,
about that last
it's
week.
like $30 a month, $40 a month, but it gives you all of this sales data, pricing data. You know, it shows different graphs with trends and all this other stuff. You can plug in like any zip code. It'll give you an immediate breakdown. You could do counties. You could do all sorts of really cool stuff. And then it also gives you like the visuals, the graphics, the charts.
Yeah.
Use those types of things. If it works, you know, to where you're able to convey what it's saying, use that and put some like social media content out where you say like, hey, you know, market indicators are showing signs that the market is shifting, and use that as a call to action for people to call you for your expertise and your real estate advice and guidance. Because if they think the market is turning, it's kind of like, you know, shit or get off the pot. Like,
Yep.
Get off the fence. If you're thinking about selling, why would you wait any longer?
Right.
Call me today before the market turns even further, or it's surely on its way down and then it's too late.
Yeah.
So you got to create that urgency.
I want to just answer Gene's question real quick. He said, what do you guys do when the seller wants to list at 600, but you know that the house should list for 535 to 550 max? So I personally think, Gene, that that's totally a situational response there, because I'm going to weigh all sorts of options. So number one, I think the difference between 550 and 600 is not so large of a gap that I can't take that on and market that property and you know, potentially negotiate a good offer for them that they'd be happy with. Now, if I think the house is supposed to be listed at 550 and they want 750, then that's a different conversation. But I think not just looking at the percentage over that they want to ask, because if it's within a certain percentage, I think it's justifiable, reasonable. But also, too, the overall situation of the client and the home, because let's be honest, there's certain clients that we can tell right away might be more challenging and might not fit personally with your personality or selling style than others. And I know there's certain clients that I can just tell when I'm on a listing appointment, these people are going to be a pleasure to work with. And in that case, no matter what I decide, I'm always 100% transparent and honest. And I will say, look, I want you guys to be fully aware that my recommendation is 535 or 550 max. We can try it your way, but with the understanding that if we don't get any activity and we don't get any offers within, 14 to 30 days, we need to address the price, because I'm telling you as the expert, it should not be higher than 550. But to give you peace of mind, if I decide I want to work with them, to give you peace of mind, we'll try it at 600. How about this? Let's try it at 599. Is that fair? And then I'll give it a shot for 14 to 30 days. And if we have no activity, then at least I've already prepped them to say, hey, now we need to drop the price, right? But again, if they want to ask something astronomically larger than what reality is, then maybe you don't take on that listing and spend your time and resources to do that, and just be honest with the people. But I think it's situational for me.
Yeah, I mean, we could look at it another way as well, like put it back on them. And I would say in that situation to them, and I'm not saying what Sal said is incorrect, because he's dead on, okay? But you could also go this route and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you guys have heard that houses, it's not uncommon for a home to sell for $100,000 over list price, right? You've been hearing, you've been watching, news headlines and things like that, right? You've heard people talking. They're going to say, yeah. Okay, you always want to get yes answers. They're going to say, yeah, I've heard that. Okay, great. So wouldn't it be safe to say that if your home was worth $600,000, it really doesn't matter where we're listed at? You'll get $600,000. They're again going to say, yeah, right? And then you say, okay, so my recommendation is we list it at $539.9, and if it's worth $600,000, maybe it's worth $650. It's going to sell for $650. I listed a house for $579 a couple weeks ago. We sold for $685. I just listed a house for $549.9 last Thursday. It's now under contract at $645. So I think it's safe to say that the list price doesn't necessarily dictate where we're going to land as far as a final sale price.
Then you're saying, Chris, we can price our house at anything we want, and it's going to sell at the same price no matter what.
Well, Mr. Smith, it's kind of like the game The Price is Right. You ever play that game? You ever watch that game? Okay. If you go over the price with your guess, you're wrong. Okay? So you got to be under the threshold, not over the threshold. Because if you're under the threshold, then yes, it will work in your favor. If you're over, you could compromise yourself and it could work against you.
But doesn't every buyer want to negotiate? They always want to come down and...
Now, see, Mr. Smith, you're thinking the old way. That's not the buyer mentality these days. The behaviors have changed, the buyers' wants and needs have changed, and the way that they approach home buying has changed. They're looking at a list price as where they need to begin, or they need to come in higher, which is why we don't want to overprice it.
Makes sense. Any questions? No?
Hey, real quick.
Yeah.
Would you guys, have you or would you ever, let's just say with a unreasonable seller, would you ahead of time prepare, let's say, a price adjustment, right at the time of taking the listing, saying, hey, we'll try it your way, but if we're not getting activity, if we're not getting offers, you're already authorizing me to drop the price.
I always have that I always have that conversation. And I've thought about doing that, Gene, because I know some people do. The reason why I don't, because to me, and I think a good quality that I have is I always put myself in the other person's shoes, right? So for me, if I'm sitting at the table with a realtor and they make me sign something guaranteeing to drop my price, you're just saying that you have no thought at all. You have no doubt that this isn't going to sell. You're not even going to try it, and you're just waiting for that time limit to hit so you could drop the price.
Yeah. I have my top 50 reasons why I don't get a listing, and yes, there are 50. There's actually more than 50. Okay, number 1 is relationship. Number 2 is price. Number 3 is commission. Okay, just so we're clear. But there's 47 others, and well beyond that. But anyway, one of the reasons that I have lost listings is that I gave off some kind of vibe, or I said something or
Yep.
did something where they, and I've heard them say this back to me when I asked them, hey, could you tell me what it was that had you decide to go with this other agent? I've heard this. We just didn't feel you believed enough in
Yep.
our home
Yep.
and executing our mission. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sorry you felt that way. I did truly want to list your home. I thought you guys were great. I thought you'd be a pleasure to work with. By the way, I always say that you got to have that human connection. I always say, you guys seem really great. You seem like you'd be a pleasure to work with. And your home, oh, I love your home. Always say those three things. You like them. You think they'd be great to work with,
What if their house
and
is
you
a
love their
knockdown?
home. Doesn't matter, man. Come on, we love a knockdown here and there.
Yeah, no. So I hope that answers your
I
question.
love
Gene.
your home. I can't wait to knock it down.
Yeah, no. So I hope that answers the question. But that actually, I mean, I don't know if we want to segue into that, but that actually goes right into listing appointments, listing presentations. And I was taught this by Chris. The first thing that I always do when I go on a listing presentation is I ask them to give me a tour of the home. Well, first thing I do is I ask them if they want me to remove my shoes. Then I asked them for a tour of the home. And as I'm going through the home, I'm building rapport. I'm not only building rapport with them, I'm complimenting their home honestly. Again, if it's a really rough home, I'm not going to tell them, oh my God, this place is gorgeous. I'll find something that I can compliment about their home. Maybe it's the location, but I'll find something to compliment. I'm building rapport. And then also too, I think this is an important thing. I'm asking key questions so that they understand this isn't my first rodeo, right? And that they understand that I can appreciate the qualities of their home, because I go on a lot of listing appointments that are, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million homes, and they're just a little bit differently built. They have different features. They offer different things. So I like to point out certain things that make them know that I know what I'm looking at and what I'm doing. And that's kind of how I build the rapport before we sit down and get into the actual presentation.
Yeah. Remember what I said, too, about building rapport. My brother Brian is big on this. I think I actually got this from my brother, but it's FORD, F-O-R-D, family, organization, occupation, recreation, dreams. Okay, what's their family dynamic? What's the deal? Kids, no kids, single, married, how long you've been married? Oh, 50 years. Oh, you guys are celebrating your anniversary. Whatever. Occupation, what do they do for a living? Recreation, what do they do for fun? What are they into? What kind of people are they? If they're music people or are they sports people? Whatever makes them tick, right? And then dreams, what are they trying to accomplish? Where are they trying to go? Are they retiring? Are they, trying to get into their dream home? Like, what are their goals, and how are you going to help them accomplish those goals? For me, the listing appointment starts way back in the street before I even pull in the driveway.
Well, that's a good point. I always get there 15 minutes early and do a lap around the block or a couple blocks, because it never, ever fails. Every seller's like, well, so-and-so's house is going for, did you see that one? And I want to make sure that I did see that one.
Yeah, by the way, the house up the street is going for $5 million. Sir, the house up the street's not going anywhere for $5 million. It's on the market for $5 million. That
Right.
thing ain't selling. But and then the one that sold because the people had to run away in the middle of the night. How about that house?
Yeah,
they left
they
it.
had to sell.
They had to sell. They moved out in the middle of the
had to
night. I
sell.
think the mob was after them. But I follow a very fine-tuned format when it comes to my listings. Okay, so I follow a format. It's an outline. It's a complete rundown of all of the different steps involved when I meet with a seller. Okay, obviously it's going to have to adjust and adapt to the different markets and different trends that we're in, different things that are going on maybe in the world. I don't know, but whatever you feel, whatever external components or external factors that you may need to adjust your listing presentation format to, I do that. But for the most part, I follow a 20-step process. I know it sounds a little crazy, 20 steps, but if you study these 20 steps and they become mentally ingrained in your brain, it does become second nature. I used to actually review these steps before I would go in a house so that I wouldn't forget like what to say or what to do. But I could tell you that when you have a script, okay, and whether it's a bullet point list or a numbered list, I have steps 1 through 20, and then after my step 20, I have different questions, okay, that I always try to ask when I'm on the listing presentation, and things that I try to say. There's key phrases, key words, and my key questions, okay? And obviously this is, specific to me. It's what I think is important. Other people have different talents, different things that they could discuss. I'm not a sports guy. I don't talk about sports. So if I get a guy who's like a diehard sports fan, I'm going to have to find something else to talk to the guy about. Worst thing ever is when I walk in their house and they're like, hey, man, so, what'd you think of the Giants game? And I'm like, yeah, it was great, man. It was great, man. That ball went fast.
Yeah. Yeah, use your strengths. Play to your strengths for sure.
But I'm like, the field goal was fantastic. But the steps I follow are based on my experience with, problems that I've had for the most part, and just making sure I don't have those problems. I mean, little small things. Like when I typically try to park in the street, I try not to park in their driveway. Obviously, if they have like a 150-foot long driveway, I'm going to look like a psychopath if I park in the street. So I'll park in the driveway. I just be very careful about where I park in the driveway. I don't block any garages. I don't block any cars in, because I have been at a listing presentation kitchen table in a home in front of husband and wife, okay? And little juniors come downstairs because they're late for their job at the Applebee's down the street. And guess who's got to move his car? Because I'm blocking little junior in. And then now I come back in the house and Mr. and Mrs. Smith are like digging through my listing presentation packet. And I'm like, whoa, I just lost complete control because I got thrown a curveball that I didn't prepare for.
Speaking of that, I think that's one of the most important things for me. My listing presentation has evolved a lot. I originally learned Chris's way, and I've kind of tweaked it to fit my own personal strengths and weaknesses. But one of the biggest things for me is maintaining control, and that's something 100%. That Chris taught me early on, and that's something that is so important to me. And for that reason, I know Chris prints out 3 copies of his listing presentation, one for himself, one for husband, one for wife. I specifically only bring one, and I don't let him see anything until the end, because the second I hand over a listing package, I lost them. They're flipping through the CMA. They're pointing at shit. They're having. I'm like, whoa, pull it in. Like, I'll get to that. They're asking me questions. So for at least a year, if not 2 years now, I do not give them anything to look at until I'm finished with my presentation. And I always remind them in the beginning and throughout that, because I could see they're eager to see what's in my package, So I'll keep reminding them, don't worry, I'm going to leave this with you when I leave, so you can go through all of this stuff. But let me get through my presentation, then I'll leave it with you. Yeah. Because I have no luck when they have something in front of them.
Yeah, I will tell you, I know for a fact that Sal and I handle our listing presentations differently. I think we've both had a lot of success with each of our approaches, but they are definitely what works for us.
Yep.
I have my approach. Sal has his approach, and obviously we both do well utilizing what we've created for ourselves over the years. So that just goes to further reinforce, you gotta have your own, your own custom tailored presentation that you're using to pitch your sellers. And just the same, I mean, I've come up with one-liners and key phrases and paragraphs, literally
I've said the same one-liners for 7 years now.
Portions of dialogue that I've used for sellers time and time again. Yep. I mean, over the years that, frankly, I'm sick of hearing me say those things, but they work.
Yep.
They work. I tell people that I'm the key point of contact from start to finish.
Does anyone have any specific listing appointment or presentation questions?
Come on, what do you got?
Does anyone have a question? Or maybe you were on a listing appointment recently and you think you screwed something up, maybe you didn't get it. Any questions at all? I've been on hundreds. Chris has been on hundreds. I mean,
we could just tell you funny stories if you guys want to hear some funny stories, God,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
What are some of your key points that you bring up out of the 20 that you mentioned, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, so they're not all topics that I bring up. They're 20 steps, 20 things that I make sure I cover. Okay, so just to be clear, such as I don't ring a doorbell, I knock on the door. Because if I ring the doorbell and there's like a little kid sleeping, I don't need to wake up a baby right before I go in someone's house. I know me, Sal just said, put your people in their situation. If I had a guy come to my house, a financial advisor, for instance, or a realtor, that's going to meet with me and my wife to talk about selling our house, and this dude comes up to my door when I had an infant and rings the bell because I forgot to tell him. Now, it's my fault. I should have told him, but that doesn't matter. He wakes up the baby, that guy's not getting the listing. All right? So it's that simple. So I don't ring the bell because I have woken up the baby before. When I come in a home, I always, always, always offer to take my shoes off.
Yep.
Okay, a lot of times they don't.
99% of the time they say
they
no,
say, "No,
but
it's
it's a
okay."
nice gesture.
But it is a nice gesture. It's considerate. Okay, like I said, I don't block anyone.
And that's another thing. I know some people don't like it. I have a shoeless home. I don't like people
Me
to wear
too.
shoes in my
Me
house.
too.
Sometimes when I have service people, I don't make them take their shoes off, but it's nice. I mean, especially when you have little children. For any of the parents out there, I think my son purposely drops things on the floor before he eats them.
Yeah.
So like it's we try to keep a clean home.
The other thing is when I go in a home with my presentation packet, I always claim my spot at the table with my packet before I do the tour of their home. Meaning I go once I eye up and I see where I want to sit.
Yep.
That is where I make my way over and I say, hey, do you mind if I put my folder here?
You ever had someone make you sit on the couch?
Don't like it.
I hate it, but
but
sometimes you got to do it.
Sometimes
but I
you
hate
do it. Listen, I've had very bizarre listing presentations. They're not all like cut and dry, cookie cutter. I've had
the
some
worst
really
is
weird,
a vacant home. You got to stand up.
Yeah, I've had some really weird situations.
Yep.
I mean, God, I'm having like my life flash before my eyes here, thinking back about some of the crazy scenarios I've been in. But like, yeah. So you just kind of like, again, just like you can get curveballs thrown at you with dialogue and knock you off, Well, getting back, you wanted to hear some of the key
I was just going to say, let's give her something useful here.
I claim my spot at the table. Then I do my tour around the house. One of them brings me through usually, or they both do, showing me all the wonderful things that they put in their home. And again, I comment, I engage, okay? Don't over-flatter to where you sound fake.
Yep.
But engage, okay? You got to get a good read on the person, okay? Now, you could also tell a lot about the person when you're doing the tour through their house, okay? So
and they'll give you a lot of indications on where they think the price should be, too.
Yes. And so do the tour, retire to wherever you're going to sit, typically dining room table. Always, always, always make sure you do not have anybody on either side of you.
You want them across.
You want them across, eye center, eye level, eye center, right across. Don't let husband sit at the head of the table and wife sit over across from you. You want them both across from you so that you have direct eye contact and total control the entire time. Okay? Then I at least proceed to, I ask them if there's any other questions that they have before we get started reviewing the market. What I typically like to do is I do a market overview. I say, how familiar are you guys with the real estate market and what's going on around you? Again, these are questions that are helping me understand where they're at mentally with the market and what they know and what they don't know. How much of this am I going to be telling them for the first time, or how much of this do they already think that they know?
Which is also why you probably do the same as me and give them the price recommendation last at the end.
I give them the price always last.
Always at the end, right?
Because I need to
justify.
Look, plus, guys, in sales, it's not what you say, it's how you say it, okay? So I deliver the price to them. Depending on all of the other information I gather, I deliver the price to them in a certain way specific to the situation.
Yep.
Okay? As I'm going through the CMA, so I do a market general overview, then I start breaking into the CMA. Now, I go through, sometimes I'm seeing this CMA, by the way, for the first time. Okay?
Yep.
My assistant puts it together for me. I'm seeing this stuff for the first time ever. Okay? I start going, now it might be in a market that I'm very familiar with. It might not be. Maybe I was on a very busy appointment. I just got the listing appointment last night. I've been on other appointments. I haven't even had time to look this stuff over. So I'm going through this for the first time. I start digging into the CMA. I'm able to get an idea of what these people think their house is worth without me having to give them a value first. Okay?
Yep.
So that, because based on their feedback of the houses that I'm going through in the CMA, okay, I'm able to sort of pinpoint where they think they fall. So if I'm showing them a house of like 5 Mockingbird Lane in the CMA, and I think it's a direct hit, a direct comparison of their house, and it sold for $600,000, and they start telling me that the mobsters were after them, those people fire sold it in the middle of the night, and blah, 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 I know that that guy that I'm talking to right there in person thinks his house is far superior price-wise than that house, okay? Or they start telling me, oh, yeah, well, that house had a whole lot of problems or whatever. Now, I have had the opposite. I'll be showing a house, and the person that I'm talking to, Mr. and Mrs. Smith at the, my prospects, I guess I'll call them, they say to me like, oh, yeah, I mean, that house sold for $600,000. I mean, dude, geez, do you think we could get that much?
Yep.
Like they say something like that, that's an indicator that they were probably thinking their house was worth.
Quite.
Well, Mrs. Smith, hold your horses there, ma'am. Hold your horses. Right. But, you could feel them out, right? And I think I've done a pretty good job like narrowing that down and reading their body language. Communication is what? It's verbal, right? And then there's voice padding and tonality, and then there's body language, right? You can tell a lot from talking to people based on like their body language, the faces that they make, all sorts of things. So you can get a really good idea of like where they stand as far as feedback goes, and that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get feedback from them. As much as you're trying to educate them about the market, for you and your own knowledge, you're trying to get feedback so that when you deliver the price to them, okay, it's received well, you gave it to them in the right packaging, the right format, okay, and it sits as good as it's going to sit with them, okay, and you just know how to handle it. All right, so that's how I go over pricing with prospects that I'm meeting with about selling their home.
And I know this is not something that I really put any consideration into when I price a house or suggest a price, but recently I have, when I'm running the CMA, I do check what the Zestimate is just because I know my seller's check and I want to know what they have in their head for that number. Not that it changes what I feel it's worth, but I want to know what they think the Zestimate is.
You need to know your prospect. And when I say you need to know your prospect, it doesn't necessarily mean, Facebook stalk them and that's how you get to know them. Yeah, is that stuff important? Sure. If if you think they're high profile or you just want to Google them just to Google them, maybe you Google them. I kind of like to know if the person I'm meeting with is, I don't know, convicted felon. I don't know. I just would like to know maybe, who I'm meeting with.
Sure.
Not that it's going to, discourage me from meeting with them. I just like to know who's sitting in front of me. I'm sure they Googled me, so I'm going to Google them too.
So at what point so I know the first thing that I do when I sit down at the table before I get into my presentation is I start with, so I'm not going on many expired appointments anymore because homes aren't expiring. But when I was, my question always was, how was your experience been? But on a new listing, I always start with the question, why are you guys moving? Tell me.
Of course.
I want to know. I want to get them talking about what their motivation is.
You're 100% right, and you actually are touching on something that I do. I just didn't talk about it now.
That's the first question I ask before 100%. I get into my presentation.
It's good to know. I always ask people, so where are you guys headed?
Right.
I always ask people that question.
I always say, you have such a beautiful home. Why are you guys moving?
Why are you moving?
Yep.
Again, 9 times out of 10, it falls within a life-changing event.
Yep.
Okay. The kids all graduated. It's just me and Mary, we got to move. We don't need this big house anymore. Okay, great. That's your reason. Well, we don't have to go into the city anymore. We could live anywhere we want, so we're moving, Job change, right? Or divorce. I mean, we see a lot of divorce in real estate. So you get an idea of why they're selling, because that's going to help you formulate your plan, understanding the dynamic
Yep.
of how they operate,
And I think
husband
too,
and wife.
I think too, one thing to really understand if you're newer to the business or newer to listing presentations, I think personally what makes the best listing presenters is the ability to adapt to your client. There is no one exact script and exact thing that you're going to use for every single client. You need to be able to read them and their personality and alter. Now, yes, you're going to stick to a particular plan, but you need to be able to alter that plan based on their personality. In my opinion, I know that, for the most part, a lot of my listing presentations follow the same course of events.
Yeah.
There's many times that it doesn't, and I have to shift and adapt.
Now, with this all being said, I just want to make a couple side notes here. One, if you're meeting with someone that you know personally, a friend, college roommate, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's a blood relative. You go there as if they're a stranger.
1,000%.
You prepare with a full-blown listing presentation, and the language that you use should be very similar to the language that you would use
I
with
don't
a,
care if it's
with
your
a
mother.
stranger. You prepare and you present like a professional.
Yep.
Okay? I don't care if it's your buddy that you go out drinking with on the weekend.
That's the biggest
If
mistake.
they offer you an alcoholic beverage, they offer you a glass of wine. Hey, man, you want to try that vodka you gave me for Christmas last year? Nah, man. Not right now. I actually have another appointment as well after this.
Yes,
Whatever
yes,
you got to
yes.
say, you don't indulge.
Yes.
Okay? Because let me tell you something. The first time something goes wrong throughout the transaction, you know what they're going to think? He's not giving it his all.
Yep.
I'm his friend.
Yep.
He's going soft. He is not giving me the same attention because we're friends.
And not only, that is the best advice. I preach this to my team over and over again, but not only is that a great reason, but also think about it. Who's going to be your best referral source in the future? Your friends and your family, the people that love you and want to see you succeed. So if you, and people at the end of the day, no matter how much they love you, they love themselves, right? And they don't want to look bad to other people. So they're not going to refer you if they think you're rolling up to this person's house in shorts and a t-shirt and drinking beers just like you were with them.
Yeah. And you know what? That goes along with the sell past, right? So I talked about that many times in the past with my database. I have people in my database that will never use me because they have their, niece who's a realtor, right? But they're going to refer me to all of their other friends and family or colleagues or whatever that need a good realtor because they know that their niece, she's incompetent. The only reason they're using her is because they have to, so they don't have drama at the holiday party. But they're going to refer me. It's the same situation, okay? If they think you are like the niece that I talked about, they're not going to refer you. They're just going to use you because they're trying to be diplomatic. They feel like they need to use you, but they're going to refer someone else. Okay, so you don't want that to happen. Don't ever put yourself in a compromised situation.
That is the biggest thing that I see, especially new agents make. I did it on like my first one or two listing appointments with friends, and then I quickly realized like, whoa, what am I doing?
Yeah, 100%. And then, getting back to the actual listing appointment, having that firm outline and having that format is going to help you take those curveballs and throw them back at wherever they come from, okay? And throw them back with like a really good response, okay? So somebody side blinds you or blindsides you, and you get crushed with something you weren't expecting, right? That's off topic. And then one of the worst things that can happen on a listing presentation, okay, can't say I haven't been there, is when you get flustered.
Yeah.
Okay, this would happen to me early on. And I would find myself
sweating.
I would find myself doing like the loop of doom. Okay, like the circle where I can't figure out. I'm like on a merry-go-round. I can't figure out where I'm supposed to get off and where I got on. I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And I'm talking about nothing, right? Because I got nerve. Now I'm like sweating and it's overwhelming. So I haven't done that in
That's
over
also why it's important to not just try to memorize a script or an outline. You need to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, you have to mold to the situation. But that doesn't mean if the guy's cracking, Bud Heavies
No,
in front
you
of
don't-
you,
no.
that you're supposed to, break out the beer bong and start hitting it with him.
I don't even like accepting water, to be honest with you. I don't know. I just don't.
That's an interesting.
Because they always ask, water, coffee? I
Yes,
always say no.
that's an
I could be
interesting-
parched as hell, and I'm like, nope, I'm good.
That's an interesting one. That's an interesting one. Hey, Doug.
No, I was gonna jump in on that one.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you take the water?
Yeah, you always do.
that's what I heard. First,
It's a mental thing that if
Control.
you accept something from them, they want to accept something from you.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good.
yeah, I was told that it has to do with control as well. As well, if they ask you, what would you recommend we do around here?
That's when I know I got them.
Well, exactly. That's an indicator that they trust.
And then I say, all right, well, listen, before we list, and then I just act that, it's already mine. And honestly, I do that throughout most of the presentation. I act
Yeah.
as if it's already mine. When
Yeah.
we list your home, we're going to
Assume
do
close.
this.
Always be closing.
Yeah.
Assume close. Act as if it's yours. Act as if you're already the listing agent.
And I also never say, if you hire me, if that something comes up, I always say, if we decide to work together. Because I want them to know that it's a collective decision. I may choose to not work with you.
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
decide to work together, not,
Yeah.
hey, if you hire me, I'll do this.
If you hire me, please hire me. But if you, when you're leaving their house, it's these subliminal, subconscious, reinforcements like, hey, it was such a pleasure meeting with you. I look forward to working with you.
Yep.
Do the assume close. I look forward, like they've already given you the commitment.
Yep.
And then in their mind, they're going to be thinking, well, Jesus, not Sal Ventre, but Chris Walsh, man, he just spent 2 hours with us on a Saturday afternoon in the summer. It's 90 degrees out. He's got a family. They're probably at the beach. This guy's meeting with us, and they're going to think like, well, we got to work with him. We got to list with him, He's already put his time and effort in.
Let me ask you a
Yeah.
question about the 2-hour thing, because I know Chris loves that. So he spends 2 hours at a listing presentation. I try to cap it at 1 the most. Sometimes I'm in and out in
I'm not
20
always
minutes.
there for 2 hours, but
I feel personally that after an hour or more, again, I feel like you start to lose them a little bit. Like there's just. I want to. It's almost like a movie, right? Like there's a beginning, and then there's a climax at some point, and then it starts to go the other way. And I want to catch them at their most excited and wrap it up then, and let them leave with that thought of me. Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do this, rather than continue to go on. And I don't want them to ever be like, Jesus Christ, I didn't think this was going to be 2 hours. We got to get here. This guy won't stop talking. We got to get going. This is crazy.
they're like, listen, I'll give you 10%. Just shut the hell up.
No, but have you ever felt that like it dragged on too long? Or
I could usually sense.
and don't you want to get out of there
I
a
can
little
usually
quicker?
sense, dude. I went on a listing appointment last year, and these people, I have a really good relationship with them at this point. I mean, we got so carried away with conversation. I was there for 5 hours.
It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean,
But we had fun. I had fun.
I
Listen,
get it.
Sal, I don't have a social life, man. I rely on my listing appointments to be my social community.
You said all your listing appointments are Friday nights.
I'm like, they're like, what are you doing this Friday? I'm like, listing appointment, man. It's gonna be totally awesome.
No, I'm in and out in an hour
gonna be
max. But
Guys,
teach his own.
Yo, Gene.
can I just tell you guys that this whole conversation podcast is like liquid gold. This has to be worth at least $25,000 for somebody.
You're getting.
I take Venmo.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Zell me, Gene.
No, I think you guys should sell the recording.
That's that. I like where your head's at, Gene.
We'll start with you. Vincent's on his way, man. We take cash.
Start charging an admission, Gene.
But one of the other things too is I don't feel like I lose them necessarily if I keep you got to keep them engaged,
Absolutely.
And the one that I was there for 5 hours, oh man, we started talking about politics and like all this other crazy stuff. We just had a lot of common ground.
Yeah.
And then a week later, the wife got hurt. They took the house off the market. I was like, wah, wah, wah. No, awesome people.
Yeah.
They did take the house off the market because the wife got hurt. But they're really good people. And the thing about my whole like front loading with a lot of time, it's not so much the time. Like, I'm not married to 2 hours. It's just I've realized that I have my format down. A lot of the things that you talk about on these listing presentations are very predictable, I guess you could say. And I will tell you that a majority of the time, I go in at 4 p.m., I'm walking back out to my car, and it's like 5:53, 6:05. Like, it's right in that 2-hour ballpark because that's just in my world, okay? That's just how long it takes. I'm also a big believer in front-loading information. I rely on the same approach when it comes to training help, an assistant, or anybody that I have to delegate to. I front load with my effort. So I feel, and I was told this years ago, and I've put this into practice, every hour that I spend with somebody that I hire for help in an assistant role, every hour that I spend with them is going to save me a month of my life down the road. Okay. It may even be more time than that I'm going to save down the road. But I try to front load with information. I made mention about this potential agent that I was trying to attract and get on board eXp. He was introduced to me from another agent on our mega team. I met with him at I brought him out to lunch. I brought the agent that's already on our team and him out to lunch. And this guy was telling me how great his business was, and I wasn't doubting. The guy, he was making about $300,000 a year, doing really well for himself, newly in the business, doing about 12 to 15 million, something like that. And his phone wouldn't stop ringing. Like, I wanted to take it and like throw it in the garbage because it wouldn't stop ringing, and it was such a distraction. Now, mind you, I'm sure my phone has rang while I'm here on this Zoom podcast, but I don't answer it because it's called time blocking, okay? That's like time management 101.
He was taking these calls?
He was like picking up his phone, looking at the phone, and then he was, oh, dude, I just got to take this one call. And he was like taking these calls. Is that Doug? Yeah, Doug.
No.
So he was taking these calls, and I'm thinking to myself, like, what is this guy doing? Why is he taking these calls? This is so rude. It was weird because I told a few other people about this meeting.
That's like, imagine taking a call at a listing appointment or something.
Right. That's exactly like when you time block, you time block.
Right.
I don't care if you're like, if I'm teaching somebody, I time block.
It's
if
funny.
I'm on a listing
So I have a
presentation,
really
time block.
good example of this. When my wife was about to have our son, like it was going to be like any minute, I said to her, I was like, and this was like, when I said it, it wasn't a joke, and it sounded somewhat like a joke. I was like, no, I was like, I just pray that you don't go into labor during a listing appointment because I'll never know.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't look at my phone for nothing.
Right,
And I don't
right.
care who's calling me. I do not look at my phone.
But you're supposed to do that with all the things you do. Doug just sent me a screenshot. He's reading The Power of Now. It goes along the lines with like that, like when you're doing something, be doing it, man. But the thing about the front loading with information is that you could more peacefully time block if you don't have people coming at you from all different directions, okay? It's kind of like when I go and do something, all right, with somebody, I try to be thorough, okay? I try to follow through and leave that time-blocked scenario where everything is complete. And then I can move on to the next thing, right? So that you have like clear, definitive, separation, right? You have all those different buckets. Well, I do that on my listing presentations, okay? I front load with information. I'm very precise, okay, about the time I'm going to be there, what we're going to discuss, because when I leave there, I want to be able to close the door on that appointment, and I don't want to be going on to the next appointment, okay, and have something from the first appointment bleeding into the next appointment. So I try to have that, where it's solidified and it's finalized, and I'm not leaving them, these are key words here, in the dark, okay? Biggest complaint I get when I go on a listing presentation, I know for a fact Sal will attest to this and agree with me. Biggest complaint when I show up there, by the way, first thing I do is I go over their tax record when I meet with them, okay, to make sure that it's accurate, okay? But the second thing I do is I go over any old listing. If they had like a recent listing in the last decade, I go over that because I'm sure they remember the situation and the experience. First thing I ask them is, what was that all about? You listed your house 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 4 years ago, last year, whatever. It didn't sell. I see here it expired. What happened? What was the scenario? Why were you selling? Tell me about that experience.
Yep.
You know what I hear all the time? The realtor sucked. What sucked about them? They didn't communicate. They kept me in the dark. That is the number one complaint that all people give about if they were unhappy with their experience, okay? Even if they are happy, chances are if there's one thing that they could say could be improved with their last realtor,
always.
it's probably communication,
Always.
okay? So that guy that I met with, okay, that agent, yeah, this comes full circle. That guy that I met with, you know what his problem was? He wasn't informing his clients enough. That's why his phone was ringing off the hook. The guy does a fraction of the amount of business I do. My phone wasn't ringing at all. Why? Because my clients are not in the dark.
Yep.
My clients know what's going on because I tell them what's going on, and I tell them at the beginning. And that is why I do 2-hour listing appointments, is because I feel if I front load, it's the same mentality and the same, idea behind for every hour you spend with hired help, it's going to save you a month down the road. Well, for every minute that I spend with a homeowner about listing their house, whether I get the listing or not, okay, the time that I spend with them, one, it goes a long way. The fact that I don't even have the business yet and I'm willing to spend all that time. Number two, I give them a really good education, and even if I don't get the listing, they're going to remember the education I gave them. And when things start going bad with the realtor that they did choose, they're going to be like, damn, we should have listed with that Walsh guy. He really knew his stuff, okay? And number three, they're probably going to refer me down the road to someone else because they're going to be like, that guy really had it going on and he spent all that time with us because he knew his business. But the biggest thing is when I'm out or I'm doing a podcast or I'm doing something, my phone isn't ringing off the hook. They also have a high level of confidence with me, and they feel confident that I really know my stuff and I know my business because I schooled them on it the first day we met. So there's just this higher level of inside confidence that I know what I'm doing, and they're not going to bother me as much because they're not going to be so concerned.
Right.
So sorry to go off on that, but it's all very, very important
good
stuff.
points.
And maybe next time we meet, we could talk about how we command, that's right, not ask, command a proper commission.
I think that's a great topic. All right, cool. We will see you guys next week. Well, throughout the rest of the week as well. But
yeah, we'll see you guys actually Friday. If you guys want to tune in, open mic Friday. I know tomorrow Deanna Brown has her eXp Explained. Thursday, there's the Beginners Boot Camp tutorial that is led by Gene and Christian, Gene Krutansky and Christian Giamanco. I had a podcast today with a Christian Giordano. That's why I just did that Freudian slip there. But Friday, we actually have Jay Kinder. Jay Kinder
That's
from
a great
eXp. One. Jay Kinder, as you guys know.
Jay Kinder's one of the top, right?
He's like one of the top pioneer with the eXp.
He's got like 5,000 agents under him.
Over 5,000. Jay Kinder will be coming to us live from his residence in Puerto Rico.
I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah.
Yeah, Jay lives in Puerto Rico. But he'll be joining us for open mic on Friday. We're really excited about that, so definitely check in with us. That is at 11?
Yes.
That's at 11 a.m. Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard. So until then, thanks again for joining us, guys, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
See you then.